Hey, congratulations on wanting to start your home buying journey. What I like to do is go over the contract with everyone. That way they know exactly what they're getting themselves into and can fully be prepared. So, this contract that we're staring at is also the offer that we're going to be making. So we'll see it once with right now, and then you'll see it again when we make the offer, and I'll go through this exact same thing with you. Just kind of quicker, more so pointing out, hey, here's this here, and this is what I mentioned prior. So let's go through it. The date is going to be when we make the offer date. The address is the property that you're going to pick out once we view homes. Price and terms, that's the offer price. Um, Depending on the market that we're in, if it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, there's going to be what is a reasonable offer price. It doesn't have to necessarily match the asking price. For this video, I'm just going to use the example of $100,000 to make numbers very easy for myself, okay? So let's say the seller is asking for 100,000. You ask me, what are homes selling for in the neighborhood? Is this a reasonable asking price? So what I'll do is I'll look at homes that have sold in the neighborhood. If they're all selling around $90,000, then I'll let you know, hey, these sellers seem like they have it priced a little high. Let's offer and then give the offer. Um, a lot of buyers want to do lowball offers or really get a deal, and I'll tell you that's not really going to work in a seller's market, especially if competition is high. So a seller's market is when there's low inventory, a lot of buyers, and a buyer's market is when there is high inventory, not a lot of buyers. Okay, so right now, during this video, we're in a seller's market. So lowball offers do not work in our market. Earnest money. This is good faith money. You don't have to put it down. It is optional, but I will tell you, you should put it down. Earnest money is going to be your first out-of-pocket expense. So I would save up money. This is going to go towards your down payment or your closing costs. So if your down payment is 3% of the purchase price, so $3,000 of the $100,000, and you put $300 down for earnest money, then it would be $2,700, or this can go towards closing costs. So if you have, if you owe, let's say, $2,000 in closing costs, and then that $300 that you put down towards earnest money, that would be $1,700 that you need. If you don't owe anything in closing costs and you don't have a down payment, then you'll just be receiving the $300 back at closing. But this is good faith money that you're going to go through with the contract and not breach the contract. There are ways that you can get this earnest money back without breaching the contract, and I will outline those as we go on. But the earnest money is going to be accepted after the contract has been, or after our offer is accepted. So your earnest money is going to be due. It's going to be held. It's going to be made out as a check. It has to be made out as a check because the lender needs to be able to trace it, okay? So you need to have it traced somehow, some way. We do have options of doing a remote payment as well, so online, like debit card kind of payment. It just has to be coming out of your account, and we have to see that it came out of your account. So with that being said, there will be a time period of when it needs to be done. So I usually give my buyers 3 days that the earnest money needs to be given within after the contract has been accepted. So first out-of-pocket expense, have money for earnest money. And then as I go through, like I mentioned, I'll explain how to get your earnest money back without breaching the contract. Financing contingency. So this is, are you going to occupy it? Is this a rental, or are you buying this for someone else? Most of the case, it's going to be your owner occupying it. But if you do plan on making it a rental, you have to live in this home for at least a year. Okay. Cash, conventional, FHA, VA, that's the type of loan that you'll be doing. Settlement charges. This is closing costs. So what are closing costs? Closing costs are the costs that your lender fees, they cover your lender fees, they cover title fees, they cover taxes, and they cover insurance. That is closing costs. And that is a portion that we can ask the seller to pay for. So you don't have to pay for it. They can't pay the entire amount, but they can pay pretty close to it. There's always going to be a percentage of what they can pay for based off of the loan that you get. Okay. The next portion is the financing. So this is stating, do you have a house to sell? If you do, it'll be contingent. If you don't have a house to sell, which you probably don't, it will be, we're attaching the pre-approval letter. So we will attach the pre-approval letter. If you're shopping with me, you'll always have a pre-approval letter. I will not show you houses if you don't have a pre-approval letter. So I'll attach your pre-approval letter. And then this is going to be, from there, you have a certain amount of time to sign all of your loan commitment papers, which is called the intent to proceed with your lender. So I usually give us 10 days to do that. And then buyer's full approval. You will have a certain amount of time to have the loan fully approved. I typically match this number. It might be 30 or 45 days. I will match that to the closing date. So that's when we'll put that. Usually VA is 45 days. So I'll put that on the line right there. And then as far as how to get your earnest money back. So if financing for some reason falls through and your lender doesn't fully approve you, then you can get your earnest money back in that situation. The next portion is the appraisal contingency. You're also protected under this contract if the appraisal falls short. So let's say again we buy that $100,000 house, and you offer them $100,000, yet the property comes back and it appraises at $90,000. Someone has to eat that cost. Either you can, which I would suggest that you don't. You can make up for it and say, no, I'll overpay $10,000 and buy the house at $100,000, or the seller is going to have to decrease the price. If they don't decrease the price to $90,000, then you can walk away and get your earnest money back. Inclusion and exclusions of sale. So this is going to state all of the appliances that stay. Typically, appliances will stay as far as like the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the stove, the microwave. Those kind of items typically stay with the house. I'll let you know if they don't stay when we're seeing the home, so you'll pretty much know. But here's another area where you can look at things throughout the house. So maybe you might like a painting on the wall. You could ask that they put that in there, or bar stools. This is where we could include that in the sale. We can also exclude things, but I highly recommend if you're excluding appliances like maybe you don't like the stove, keep the stove. Don't exclude it. The reason why I'm telling you to keep it is because you can sell it after the closing and make some money off of that. That's just my suggestion, but you can always exclude things as well. Number 6 is just stating that the sellers certify that they own everything. So let's say we put on there the washer and dryer. And then when you move into the house, the washer and dryer are not there. And then they come back and they say, oh my goodness, it was the tenants. Well, we were expecting a washer and dryer. So since it's not there, they have to put the washer and dryer. They have to give us a washer and dryer, okay? But it is stating that the seller checked over all of the items included in the sale, and they're responsible for making sure that's right. Seller certification. So this is just Ohio's way of stating that the seller's best of seller's knowledge, this is what they know. Is the home located in a historic district or is it not? Well, pretty much no. And I'll let you know if it is located in a historic district. Most of the places that my clients are looking, it's never in a historic district, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. Most historic districts have maintenance agreements as far as like what you can do to the outside of your home. So will it be subject to that? Is it located in a floodplain requiring insurance? If it is, I will let you know. And this is something that you're going to want to do immediately. You're going to want to check on the floodplain insurance because it could really raise your mortgage payment significantly based off of the premium. So you want to look at that immediately. After we get under contract, that is. Is it subject to a municipal pre-sale inspection? So this is the city. Does the city have to come out and inspect it prior to it selling? Right now in Ohio, Clayton is the only place that I know that does that. Clayton Inglewood. So if you're looking there, then that's going to be required of the sellers, and the buyer has to sign off on the municipal pre-sale inspection. Homeowners association, so we'll know if there's a homeowners association, but there are fees. So condos have HOA fees, and then some neighborhoods have HOA fees. So this is another area where you can back out of the contract and get your earnest money back. So HOAs have certain bylaws that they uphold to, and they want their residents to uphold to. So the seller will be responsible for giving us bylaws within a certain amount of time after the contract has been accepted. And so we'll have a certain amount of time to review it. And I usually say 3 days and 3 days. So maybe, you find that you can't put plants outside of your house if it's a condo or something like that. And that really is like a no-go for you. And you want to back out of the contract because of that. Or maybe you can't put a shed on your property. And that's a no-go for you, especially if the house didn't have a basement. So you want to back out. That's fine. You can. And this is going to be something where we can get our earnest money back for that. Maintenance. It's just stating that the seller has to keep the property in the exact form that we saw it. Once we put a contract, wrote an offer, and got an accepted contract, they have to keep it like that all throughout the process, even on day of closing. But once you move in, this is stating that it then becomes your responsibility. So the seller is not responsible for anything that happens thereafter. So let's say a pipe burst while you're under contract with the home. If a pipe bursts, then that is the seller's obligation to get that fixed because they're living in the property. But let's say after you move in, 2 days later, a pipe bursts. It is not the seller's responsibility, it's yours. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen. So that's why they put that in there. We will be doing a walkthrough of the property just to make sure everything is the same. And as we saw it, so when we do the final walkthrough, we'll check to make sure nothing's leaking or anything like that. Okay? Home warranty program. This is something that the seller can pay for. Sometimes sellers offer it up front in the offer. This will cover the major appliances such as the dishwasher, the refrigerator. It'll also cover water heater, the furnace, the air conditioner. So it'll cover the major appliances. It's kind of like having a landlord, and you don't have to get it. You don't have to ask the seller to get it. Since we are making an offer, the more we ask for, the less enticing our offer is. But this is pretty good that you can ask for it. And then you can pick your own home warranty company. I have a list of recommended home warranty companies that I would recommend as well. And you can go through those or find your own home warranty company. And you don't have to get it, like I mentioned. However, if you don't get it, you can get it like 3 years later after you've been owning the house, So you can get it whenever. But if you choose for the seller to pay for it, then you have to get it at closing. Insurance, like I mentioned, for the floodplain insurance, you're going to really want to look during the inspection period at how much. You're going to want to find out how much your premium is. So this is stating that you have to do that within the inspection period. Property disclosure form. This is a property disclosure form that states that the sellers give to us, and we will review that prior to making an offer. And basically, it'll state what the seller knows about their property while they've lived there. So don't take this as an inspection, but it's just stating, has there ever been any leaks that have occurred? Did they fix it? Where were they at? Those kind of things will be in there. Has there been termites? Is there sufficient amount of water? What is it about the property? So you'll want to look at that. Buyer's offsite acknowledgement. So you'll also want to do your own offsite acknowledgement and research to make sure that you know about the area. Are there any sex offenders near you? What's the crime rate? I, as a realtor, cannot tell you that because of biased opinions, but I can lead you to factual things. Okay, so you'll want to pull your own police reports. You'll want to do everything as far as looking into the area to make sure that you are in a home that you want, because after the closing happens, if there's sex offenders or something like that, you cannot sue the seller for not letting you know. It was your responsibility to look into that. Okay. The inspection period. So this, again, like I mentioned, right after the contract is accepted, the inspection period starts. So the day after is the first day of the inspection period. I will typically give my buyers 14 days to do this inspection period. And I recommend you getting the inspection period done immediately. Having the actual whole house inspection done immediately. That way you can see if there's any estimates that we're going to need, and you also have time to do your offsite acknowledgement, and if there's flood insurance, look into the premium for that as well. Okay. So that gives us enough time to write up a report and then send it back. The quicker we send it back to them, the quicker the inspection period ends. So this is also your time where, you can back out of the contract if something major comes up in the inspection, and then you would get your earnest money back. Once we ask the seller for repairs and submit our request, we're then in a settlement period, and that changes everything. So you will not be able to get your earnest money back in that settlement period. once we've given them a chance to respond. So we have to have them respond first. If they say no, they're not going to fix anything that we requested, then of course you can give it back to them. Like you can send the I mean, wow, excuse me. If they say no, they're not going to do any repairs, then that means that you can get your earnest money back. But if they say they're going to do some of it and not do all of it, then we have a chance to negotiate what it is that we want. Maybe we want them to ask, we want to ask for money to be credited to us at closing, and then go from there. This portion is just the entire inspection. This is also out-of-pocket costs. So you'll get with an inspector. You don't have to have an inspection whatsoever. If you're low on funds, out-of-pocket funds, then you don't have to get an inspection, but I'd highly recommend one just so you know exactly what you're walking into. If you're FHA, VA, you have to get a termite inspection. Like you have to. It's mandatory. If you're VA, the seller pays for it. The seller will pay for the termite inspection. So, with that being said, this is the portion of everything. Property survey. Some lenders require a property survey and some don't. If your lender does not require the property survey and you want to get one done to know exactly where the property lines are, it's going to cost you extra out-of-pocket money. That's about $500. Do that during the inspection period. Other contingencies and agreements. So while we're walking through the home, we might notice that windows are broken. Well, we don't need an inspection to tell us that we want those repaired. We can write that up in the offer, stating that they must get the windows replaced prior to closing and give us a receipt. Title insurance. Excuse me, my nose is stuffed up. Title insurance. This is a portion where you will really want, I recommend all buyers get it, no matter if the seller pays for it or not. The title insurance portion is just stating that you're getting a one-time owner's title insurance from the title company, and if there are ever any liens on your property, the title insurance will protect you from that. And you can ask that the seller pay an amount not to exceed $300, or you can ask for the seller to pay the entire premium. Title insurance typically runs $4 every I always suck at this. So let's say again our $100,000 is the amount. So the title insurance would be 100,000 times 0.004. So that's what it would be. So it would be about $400 for the title insurance. So you can ask that the seller pay $300 towards it, or you can ask them to pay the entire amount of the title insurance premium for you. Taxes and assessments. Short versus long proration. In Ohio, we pay taxes in arrears. So with that being said, long proration is good for the buyer because it's going to be stating that the seller is giving them a credit of 6 months worth of taxes. But in Montgomery County, it's not standard. Just because something's not standard doesn't technically mean that we can't ask for it though. So long proration just means that the seller is going to give them a credit of 6 months worth of taxes, plus the taxes that are due like from January of 2020 all the way to closing. So essentially they're going to have like a year's worth of taxes in there. In your escrow account for your closing costs. This is going to affect your closing costs. And then short proration is how much taxes This would be that the sellers are only going to be giving you taxes from starting this year, so January all the way to closing. Taxes are paid in arrears, so there's going to be 6 months of taxes that you have to either be responsible for getting into your escrow account, or the seller will be giving you a credit for. So short peroration just states that the sellers will be getting a credit back. So they're keeping that 6 months, and then you have to come up with it. And then long peroration is stating that they're giving you a credit for the 6 months plus the amount of the time that they've owned the house all the way to closing for this actual year that we're in. So 2020, January, all the way to closing. And then you'll be responsible for the remainder of the 6 months. So, if you were to close in May, then you would be responsible for getting May and June's taxes in there to make up a full year's worth of taxes in your escrow account. It's a little confusing, it's a little sticky, but all it comes down to is 6 months worth of taxes, really. And this will affect closing costs. Okay, assessments. This is like what the city has assessed to you. So if there's new street lights going on in the neighborhood, the city's going to tack on an extra $100 throughout the year for your taxes. So you'll know, or whatever it is they tack onto your taxes, but you'll know if there's ever going to be an assessment, because one, as a homeowner, you would get a letter in the mail stating that, hey, we're putting in new streetlights in your neighborhood. This is the assessment. And then we'll also be able to see that prior to writing an offer, based off of the county auditor's website. Prorations, other ones would be like the condos fees, the HOA fees. So if you do go to a condo, this would be the fees associated with that. If condo HOA fees are done, some of them are done quarterly, so depending on when closing is done, or like, did they already pay for the HOA fees or not? So we'll know about that as well. Conveyance and closing. This will be the title company. I work with the title company. I have several that I work with. So this, if you don't have one in mind, I'll put one of them here. They are all really good. I just kind of rotate them, honestly. Date of closing will be the date that we put. So, it might be 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, whatever it is, I'll put that here. And then the deed, how your name will appear on the deed. So this will be your government name and how you want it to appear. Possession and occupancy, typically it will match the date of closing, but maybe the seller, needs 2 weeks to occupy the home, then it might change. So that's what will be on possession and occupancy. And then expiration and approval. So if you're shopping for homes, and you might have an eye on 1 or 2 homes, maybe 3 homes, you cannot write 3 offers at the same time. You have to write 1 offer and then wait until we give them time for expiration. So let's say that we put this offer in, but there's another house that you really want to make an offer on, and we give them 8 hours to respond, 12 hours to respond. Typically, I give 24 hours to respond, but if it's in a multiple offer situation, then that might be totally different. But so let's say we just give them 12 hours to respond, and they don't respond. This entire contract is null and void. So you can then go make an offer on another property. Let's say you don't have another offer in mind, and this offer expires after that 12 hours. If you want to extend the offer and continue to give them time, then that's fine. We can extend it. And some people actually tell us up front, like, hey, give us time to respond back because the couple might be elderly and they might not really be good with technology and getting things signed. Everything that I'm showing you will be electronically signed by you. So don't worry about signatures, like having to print out the form every single time and sign it, okay? Action by seller. The seller will either accept, reject, or counter, and then give us a time frame on when to respond if they counter. And with that, you can either accept, reject, or counter. And then the final signature, we'll put that here, and then receipt of earnest money. So basically that's it. I know this was a 30-minute video and it's a lot, but if you have any questions, let me know.